And now after the paint has dried, it no longer gets hands dirty. You can already start gluing the petals. For assembly, this will be the inner petals, which we have without wire. But I want to say, look, if suddenly, let's say, after complete drying, the petals have become very hard, and sometimes, when the petals are solid, the base is thick enough, it is difficult to glue later, even with super glue. What am I doing? I just lay the petals. They are flexible. Although the paint is already dry, I put the petals in ordinary disposable plastic containers, and I put one wet napkin in there. And I close these petals with the lid for half an hour. After the lapse of this time, I take out the pitch and they absorb sufficient moisture into itself, thus become sufficiently soft. Look, soft in moderation, not too much, but such that you can, in principle, easily stick them. Soft base. Then we'll just hang it. They will dry out assembled and will keep their shape perfectly. That's all. Let's get started. What will we do first? I take one petal. I coat it at the base with super glue. So, I am applying between the stamens here. In this way. Now I'll hold and show how it will look from below. I apply and I press hard. Look. This is how the petal is glued. We pressed it. We held it. Everything is stuck. Now, further. Take the next one and do the same. We coat. And now we need to glue it next to it. Now I'll turn it over and glue it. We glue it next to this petal, in this way, and at the same time I press. I glue it in such a way that all three petals would fit. We were next to each other. That is, they do not overlap each other, but are simply glued side by side. So, press down and take the next petal. I coat it. And I do the same. I put and press between the petals. That's all. The petals are stuck. Now watch. I turn it over and show what I get. Of course, the petals are soft. I soften them on purpose. They don't keep their shape. But what do I want to say? Now, before we glue the next petals, which are already with wire, it is necessary to leave these petals to dry a little. What can I do? You can make a foil mold. Now I'll show you how I do it. In order to fix our pitch, we will fix them and they will take the desired shape. So it will dry and then we will glue the next petals. So, now I'll show you how I will do it. Or, of course, you can lower it upside down. But they can be too close to each other. Then you have to put a napkin between them, or just leave it that way if you want them to be close to the middle. I will use the foil. The frame. How do I do it? I take the foil. I fold it several times. And now I'm going to make a cup out of foil. I form the one I need. From this side. In principle, it is easy to form from foil. It bends well, takes the desired shape. Now I press it from all sides. These corners can be turned outward. So, I make it in the form of a cup, in this way. So now, I will now insert our tulip. This way, look. I form the desired distance between the petals and the cup. Now I'll wrap it in the tape downstairs, so that nothing goes anywhere. And I leave it to dry in some kind of vase or some kind of foam, and let it dry like this. It will dry up for several hours. It should stand up, and then you can glue the following petals. So, in this way. Now let's see what happens after the petals dried up. Look, I removed the foil and the shape of the inner petals is preserved. They have dried up and the shape we need holds. Look, that's the way it is. What are we going to do now? Now we will need to glue the outer petals. How are we going to glue them? Look, at first, we need to glue it on super glues, and we will also use the tape for screwing with wire. So, I'll take it right away and prepare the tape. I made it a strip. I cut it in half. And now we will carefully glue it. So I'll pull a little. Let's take the first petal first and move it. We will apply between the inner petals, that is, the petal will go between the petals that are inside. Look, in this way to be located. So now I will probably make the camera higher so that it can be seen better. So, it seems to be higher and better to be seen. So let's see. Attach, we attached. Now let's see what we need to do. We glue, coat, or rather the base of the petal is here. A little super glue. Now gently apply between the petals. Now a second so that it is all clearly visible. And so that everything sticks well. So be careful. Look, if suddenly there is an excess of glue, then be sure to remove them with a napkin. So, press gently with your fingers so that it is well fixed. So, look. This is how the first petal is located. Now, we will probably screw it at the end when we glue all 3 petals. We coat the next petal carefully. This is how we hold the wire at an angle of 90 degrees so that it does not interfere. We apply the following petals. Press it well with your finger at the base like this. I press gently like this. Here's what happens. So now, the last petal remains. Now we will glue it too. See, the petals are still flexible because it is better that they are not completely dry. It will be more difficult to glue. For example, it's more convenient for me when they are still flexible enough. I'd rather leave it to dry completely, give the desired shape again with the help of either foil or simply lowering the flower upside down, and the desired shape will be formed by itself. After drying, the petals will take the desired shape. So, We press. See what happened. The petals are glued where we need it. That is, each of our subsequent petals is glued between the previous petals. That's the way it is. Now, we need to wind these wires with tape. Now we will screw them on. Now I will straighten the wire a little, because the wire must then be perfectly flat. I show it for you. Bend it a little, and of course the wire for the stem should be very even, so that later there would be a perfectly even trunk. The tulip has a stem, so we fasten. Carefully. At the very bottom. And we go down. So, since I have a wire without a winding, then I will do it to the end. If you have a wire with a winding, then you can screw the petals themselves. So, I'll walk a little like this to the end of the wire. And then, now we look what form do we need to be. What do I want to do? I need a shape like this. It will be, in principle, closed, but some outer petals will be slightly open. That is, it will not be entirely bud-shaped, but an open tulip. So let's see. If you leave it like that, you see the petals open. I want to make it like this. That is half parted open. That is not at all disclosed petals. Here is the water top and side view. In this way. What will I do for this? Again, I will use the same foil I used to fix the inner petals, only now I will expand a little. Give me a sec. Here it is, this foil bow for forming the desired shape. Now I will insert and see how it will be. It's very convenient to use. First, the desired shape is accepted. Well, of course, the petals should be after staining, of course drying, otherwise all this paint will rub off on the foil and all this will get dirty. Therefore, the paint must be dry. Look. Yes, and I want to remind you. Why did I get external flexible petals? Because I remind you that if you don't want our petals to be too hard after the paint has dried, they dry 100% and they become hard. Not as pliable and soft when to dry. Then I just put them in a container with a damp cloth for literally 1 hour, for 2 maximum. Petals. They become softer, more flexible than I already glue. Again, you see I form the shape I need. And I leave it to dry for a few hours. The tulip will stand in this form, that's all. The petals dry up. It can be left overnight. The evening we formed. We left for the night. That's all. The desired shape will be fixed and there will be such a beauty. We leave it. Look, I fixed it like that and this form suits me. We leave it, let it dry up and some kind of further toning. Now we will finish the outer side. It will be necessary to tint and we will already roll in the stem. So, well now, after the petals have dried up, have taken the desired shape, now we will need to roll the stem. How are we going to make the stem? We will make it light green using, of course, clay and using herbal green oil paint. And maybe we will need a silicone brush like this. Let's start right away, so as not to waste time. Let's take a small amount of clay. And you will need to add a small amount of paint. We will not make the color too intense. We want a light green shade. I'll take an approximate amount because then we will make the leaves of the same color. Let's add some clay later. So, let's disturb it a little and add some oil paint. Add a little bit, don't overdo it, because we need a light shade enough. That is, we add a small amount and watch. If the color suits us, then great. If it is too light, then you can add more green paint. We need see what happens. So, the color is light green, but very light. I'll just add a little more paint. I think this amount will be enough. So I stirred and that's what happened. This is the light green shade we want. Now we remove the paint. And we take the necessary amount of clay. Look, we need to roll the stem. Leave a small distance. Here we'll make a hook so that you can hang the tulip upside down to dry the stem and roll the stem at a distance of about 30 centimeters. For the stem it will be like this. Let's take the required amount. If it is not enough, then we will add it later. What will we do? We need to make a sausage. Roll out on a hard surface. Now let's measure the thickness. I took a lot of this clay. A lot is better than a little. We will now remove the excess. So, now I will measure the length. We need a clay thickness of about 6-7 millimeters, so that the thickness of the stem is the same, 6-7 millimeters. So, let's estimate how much we need. Okay, that's it. We remove unnecessary things. We wrap this in plastic. Now, once again, we will estimate how much it turns out, then we will remove the excess. Now, what are we going to do? I take a rolling pin and put it on top. Press the clay to the table. I need to flatten it with this stir of clay. Now we coat with latex glue. So, we take latex glue and apply it directly to the clay like this. My latex glue has already thickened, so it is applied in such a thick layer. Distribute evenly over the entire length. We coat. And now we will carefully roll over the stem with this clay. Rather, run in the wire and create the stem we need. So, what do we do first? We need to first attach the top here to the tulip to the flower itself. And with such enveloping movements, we lower the clay down the wire along the wire. If now there is excess clay, then we will have to pick it up. Yes. Here we make a loop. We remove this segment. Here we embrace. Once again, we go through with our fingers carefully. What are we doing now? Look. Gently holding on to the flower, we pinch like this so that later the clay does not disperse where we grabbed it and glued it. We need to make a pinch like this and press gently with your fingers. So, we go through like this to the end, pinch, press with our fingers, align. We make the necessary form. Look, what do we need to do? On a smooth flat surface, we need to roll a little. For this, here I have a very smooth surface. I'll use a wet wipe. So I'll walk a little on the table with a napkin. And with this method, that is, at the join of the table, the flower should be lowered down the table so that it does not touch and the stain remains on the table. And here we are. With neat movements, palms, fingers somewhere, we walk on a flat surface. In doing so, we roll the stem. Look, to make it even. To become quite smooth even. We need an even stem. So, we try to do it all very carefully. Let's see what happens. We carefully align this place. I have a very soft clay, so look, I need to do all this very evenly here to distribute the weight of the efforts of the hands, the pressure itself. Because we don't press hard, you need to do all this very carefully, evenly and without strong pressure. If the clay is dense enough, more effort can be made. Roll out the clay a little with great effort. So, now, it is necessary to take water, and now we will level the stem with water. Here's what happened. After rolling on the table, it is still smooth, but not perfect. Now we will make it perfect with water. Let's start with what? Let's start from the very top, where we have the stem attached to the flower. I will use a silicone brush, and we need to transfer the stem to the petals carefully. That is, attach and wash. We do all this carefully so that water does not fall on the petals. So, that is such movements. You can end up trying with your fingers if you don't have a silicone brush, but a silicone brush is better in the sense that everything turns out neater and more even. So, we try to do everything quickly enough until the stem is dry and begins to wind. Otherwise, it will be difficult to roll around the stem itself, wash it. Therefore, here we try to do it faster. So, from the bottom up the movement, or vice versa, does not matter. The main thing is that it is even. So, here is the joint. So what are we doing now? If you get excess water, excess moisture, then carefully remove it with a damp cloth. Now, What am I doing? Holding on to the petals, I just wet my hand and passed between the index finger with such gentle movements. That is, I make such a bend of the finger and walk gently, practically without pressing. At the same time, moisture and a little effort smooths the stem and the clay is leveled. You can help here with your fingers. If somewhere there are some joints and irregularities, we try not to overdo it with water. We keep all this very carefully without pressing on the clay. That is, look, there is no effort. The stem passes in the hand as if sliding, while it is very well smoothed with water and all irregularities are removed. And you get a very even stem. I do this over the sink. I just turn on the water and carefully, slightly moistening my hands, I do all this so as not to get the tables dirty. Then everything is gently washed into the sink and there is no excess dirt. Nothing's wrong. I will show you how it's done. Look, align a little more here for better results. Here you can walk your fingers like this, aligning neatly, giving the desired shape. So that's probably all. Look, a napkin must be located. Here's what happened. We washed the stem, it turned out to be such a smooth stem without flaws, unnecessary wrinkles and errors. Now you need to make a loop. Now I will carefully make a loop at the very end and hang the tulip upside down in the same way. Be sure to look. If moisture collects, drops drip down, gently remove with a damp or dry cloth. Better to use a wet one, so that there is no excess moisture that gets on the petals. We leave it to dry so that the stem is completely dry. Our further actions, we will make leaves. And while the tulip dries up, we will make the stem itself.